Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from The Absence, Coffinized, out June 25th on M-Theory Audio. This album has 11 tracks, 50 minutes in length, and this is the band's fifth full-length studio album. They are an American melodic death metal band. Now this album feels very compact, very linear. It's really easy for you to transition from song to song because there's a sense of commonality that really permeates from one track into the next. Not to say that they're interconnected, but there's a lot of similarities as you move from song to song, and the overall essence of the album is one that really comes together as one, not necessarily depending on the individuality of the tracks themselves. Now on the negative side of that is that the album starts to feel a little bit repetitive after a while. It really needed to be perhaps a little bit shorter. 50 minutes is really long for an album that has this sort of soundscape, that has this sort of construction, so 40 minutes would have helped the overall playability of the record, but also having a couple of interlude tracks that would really set them apart from everything else that is happening and would also allow you to kind of reset your senses and not seem like you're just getting through the grinder with every single song providing you a very similar output and a very similar atmosphere. Once you get into the sound, it's definitely a death metal album with melodic death metal elements at play. It really mixes those two worlds together, but the overall sound experience is one that dips the scale a little bit more to the traditional death metal approach. It's a little clunky at times. It doesn't have this necessary definition that you would really look forward into a more melodic death metal album. It has some elements of the past, so it has a little bit of a throwback feel in terms of how it sounds and how it's constructed and how it comes across. It plays well with all the other elements, but it definitely gives you a sense of being robust and not being necessarily smooth around the edges. Within that soundscape, you have two elements that become the cornerstones of the record: the drums and the guitars. I really like the drum sound on this album, and I like what they did with the drums overall, creating some substance, creating some heaviness, pushing the album forward, but at the same time grounding it and keeping that foundation of the record almost intact. There are some variations, there are some nuances from song to song, but you almost get a sense of what you're going to get out of the drums the moment you get into this record. It starts to feel like there's a pattern to it, and that pattern stays throughout all 11 songs. On the other side, you have the guitars, perhaps a little bit more diverse, dipping their toes in different styles and different waters, if you will. Sometimes a little bit more traditional death metal approach, more direct, more to the point, and mixing in some more melodic elements in order to give the album and give the overall soundscape, or at least try to give it a little bit more thickness, a little bit more layers, a little bit more for the listener to digest, because overall I felt like this is an album that offers a very simple feel. So what they did to the guitars was an addition to it, and really trying to move the needle and create an album that has a little bit more under the veil, if you will. On top of it all, you have the vocals. The vocals are super consistent, perhaps the most consistent element of this record from top to bottom. There's really not many variations or any variations at all. What you get in the first song is exactly what you're going to get all the way through to the end. I like the vocal style, I like the grittiness that it has, I like the harshness that it provides to the record. It definitely adds aggression, it definitely adds intensity, and it adds heaviness. So in songs where there's a little bit more melody, you really feel like the vocals are coming in and complementing the overall sound really well. In songs that already have heaviness being put forward by the guitars and drums, the heaviness that it comes out of the vocals is almost a cherry on top, if you will. So I like the vocal approach throughout this record. It was really something that matched well with the structure of the album, with the overall design, and definitely with the soundscape that it holds, with that old school approach, mixing in a lot more melodic elements into the mix. Overall, I enjoy the record, but this is not an album that stands out. It's a good record, but there's so many good records like this one out there. This album needed something in order to set itself apart. It felt too simple to me. It felt safe, it felt simple, it felt like they really didn't give me something that made me want to come back for a second spin or a third spin. What I got out of it the first time around, that's pretty much what the album had to offer. So it didn't have that layer atmosphere to it, or it didn't create enough nuances within the overall presentation to really make me come back to it and digest the song perhaps a little bit deeper. It felt like it moved well, but it moved well only at the surface. As far as favorite songs goes, I want to start off with Future Terminal. Great riff on this track. I really enjoy the guitar riff. The drums really give the track some consistency, and the vocals come in and wrap everything up. They're kind of the glue that holds everything together. The verses are a little bit more direct. The chorus is a little bit more methodic, so there's a slight change between the two, and this creates a divide. It creates some ebbs and flows to a song that otherwise would have been super linear, super straightforward. The solo section is very interesting. I like what they did there because it kind of changed a little bit the ambiance that the track has, and it gives you a chance of a reprieve. It gives you a chance to come up for air and take a little bit of a breath before the onslaught returns. Next, Cathedral Dawn. Great tempo from the start. It's a song that just has a lot of intensity built into the way it's designed, the way it comes across, and I like that. Power, aggression, all of these things really coming well together. The drums and guitars working in parallel. I didn't feel like they were really mingled with one another, but that was an important element as well that allowed you to feel that the song was a little bit more robust, that had a little bit more heaviness, because you can really see these two elements working in parallel to each other, but doing exactly the same thing, or at least pulling you towards the same finish line. So I really like that approach. I really like that design that this track has. The vocals help you guide your experience all the way through, so they're almost that beacon in the fog that really allows you to gravitate towards them, hold on to them, and enjoy all the volatility that is happening around it. There are some pauses, there are some chances for you to catch your breath. This is not a kind of track that's absolutely demolishing from the beginning all the way to the end, but the sensation that you get at the end of the song is that you've just been put through the ringer. So it's an interesting song from that perspective because it's not built that way, but it does give you that sensation once you reach the end of the track. Last but not least, my favorite song on the album, Discordia. Just great track all around in terms of how it's constructed, in terms of how it's delivered, how it sounds, how it's all put together, how everything comes together. It's just really well done. It feels like perhaps one of the best blends as far as tracks are concerned on this record, really merging that old school death metal with a more modern melodic approach, and they worked so well together. They felt perfect with one another. It was really hard to tell where one ended and where the other one started because the way they combined forces was just perfect from beginning all the way to the end. An easy song to digest, but a song that had a lot more layers than some of the previous tracks on the album. So it allowed me to kind of come back to it again and really enjoy the overall experience that it puts forward. Heavy, aggressive, brutal, just it has a lot to offer. It has a lot to give to the listener. This is it. The Absence, Coffinized, out June 25th on M-Theory Audio. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.